My name is Emily Carter, and at 31 years old, I used to believe that life would eventually reward patience and loyalty. I thought that if I stayed kind, worked hard, and loved deeply, everything would fall into place. But the night I stood in a luxury resort in Hawaii, listening to my husband laugh with another woman while plotting how to leave me with nothing, I realized something brutal. Life does not reward silence, it tests how long you are willing to endure before you finally choose yourself. Back in college, I had dreams that felt bigger than anything my small hometown could contain. I wanted to be a singer, the kind who could step onto a stage and make an entire room hold its breath. Music was never just a hobby to me, it was how I understood the world, how I processed emotions I could never say out loud. But reality has a way of redirecting people. After graduation, I took a job as a loan officer at a small bank in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was stable, predictable, and far from the life I once imagined, but it helped me pay off my student loans and build something resembling security. I met Daniel at a college reunion hosted by a mutual friend. The room was loud and filled with familiar faces, but he stood out immediately. He had an effortless charm, the kind that made conversations feel easy and genuine. We were paired together during a party game, and within minutes, we were laughing like we had known each other for years. What drew me in most was how he listened. When I mentioned my old dream of singing, he did not dismiss it or laugh. Instead, he told me he understood. He had once been part of a dance crew in college but gave it up to pursue business because of his family expectations. That shared sense of sacrifice created an instant connection between us. Our relationship moved quickly, but it felt natural at the time. Daniel was attentive in a way that made me feel seen. He would plan thoughtful dates, bring me small gifts, and encourage me to sing around him even when I felt shy. My mother had always worried about my future, often reminding me that stability mattered more than dreams. So when Daniel came into my life, kind, successful, and seemingly devoted, I allowed myself to believe this was the life I was meant to have. Within a year, we were married, and I made the decision to leave my job so we could focus on building a family together. At first, married life felt like a continuation of the dream. Daniel worked at a financial consulting firm in Charlotte, earning enough for both of us to live comfortably. He told me I deserved a break after years of studying and working, and I believed him. But not long after the wedding, I began to understand that marrying Daniel meant stepping into something far more complicated than just a relationship. His younger sister, Chloe, was someone I had heard about before meeting her. The family described her as fragile, someone who had suffered severe nerve damage after a childhood illness. They said she could not walk or speak, and that she relied on them for everything. When I first saw her, sitting quietly by the window with a sketchpad in her lap, my heart broke. She looked delicate, almost too gentle for the world around her. But as I spent more time with her, I noticed something unexpected. There was a spark in her eyes, a quiet intelligence that did not match the helpless image everyone else described. Chloe communicated through drawings and a letterboard, and slowly, I learned how to understand her. We developed our own rhythm, a silent language that felt more honest than anything I experienced in the rest of the household. One afternoon, as we sat on the back porch, I traced the shape of a musical note in the air. She smiled and drew a heart in response. It was a small moment, but it felt like we had connected in a way that words could never fully capture. If Chloe was a quiet light, then Daniel's mother, Margaret, was something entirely different. She carried herself with a controlled intensity that made every interaction feel like a test. Nothing I did ever seemed to meet her standards. She would comment on the way I arranged the house, the way I dressed, even the way I spoke to Daniel. Her words were always sharp, but delivered in a tone that made it difficult to openly challenge her. I quickly learned that in her eyes, I was not truly part of the family. I was someone who had to prove my worth, over and over again. After the wedding, Daniel and I moved into a small apartment about 20 minutes from his parents' home. At first, I thought the distance would give us space to build our own life. But somehow Margaret always knew when I was alone. She would show up unannounced, bringing groceries and unsolicited advice, treating me less like a daughter-in-law and more like an employee she needed to train. I told myself this was normal, that adjusting to a new family simply took time, but deep down, I felt something was off. Over the months, I began to notice a shift in Daniel. The man who once went out of his way to make me feel loved slowly became distant. He stopped asking about my day. He stopped noticing the small things. He came home later, often blaming work, and when I tried to talk to him about it, he brushed it off as stress. I wanted to believe him, so I did. I told myself that relationships go through phases, that this was temporary. As Daniel pulled away, Chloe became my anchor. I visited her more often, sometimes just to escape the tension in my own home. I started teaching myself sign language late at night, determined to understand her better. With her, I felt seen again. There was no judgment, no hidden expectations, just quiet understanding. Then came the moment that changed everything. One morning, Daniel asked if I had plans for the following week. His tone was hesitant, which immediately made me uneasy. When I told him I did not, he explained that his family had planned a trip to Hawaii. For a brief second, I felt a flicker of excitement. We had once talked about going there together. But that feeling disappeared when he avoided my eyes and told me I would not be coming. Instead, they wanted me to stay behind and take care of Chloe. The words hit harder than I expected. It was not just the exclusion. It was the assumption that I would agree without question. Before I could fully respond, Margaret arrived, reinforcing the request in a way that made it clear it was not really a request at all. I swallowed my frustration and agreed, even though it felt like something inside me was quietly breaking. Later that day, I went to see Chloe and told her what had happened. She listened carefully, her expression unreadable. Then she signed something that caught me completely off guard. She said they had left me behind again, and then added that we had our own plans. The next morning, everything I thought I knew about that family collapsed. I walked into Chloe's room with a cup of coffee, expecting the usual quiet routine. Instead, she sat up on her own. Before I could even process it, she stood and walked toward me. My mind could not keep up with what I was seeing. Then she spoke, calmly, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. She had never lost the ability to walk or speak. What followed was a truth more painful than anything I had imagined. Chloe revealed that she had been pretending for years. After their father passed away, Margaret had taken control of everything and treated her like a burden. By appearing weak, Chloe had learned to protect herself, to stay unnoticed in a house where attention often meant control. She told me she had been watching everything, understanding far more than anyone realized. Then she said something that shifted everything inside me. She told me I deserved to see the truth about my husband. That was when she revealed her plan. She had booked tickets. We were going to Hawaii. The trip felt surreal from the moment we boarded the plane. Sitting beside Chloe, who now looked like a completely different person, I felt like I was stepping into a new reality. By the time we arrived at the resort, I was no longer the woman who had quietly accepted being left behind. I was someone preparing to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. That evening, we found Daniel and his family at a poolside restaurant. What I saw confirmed everything I had feared. He was sitting close to another woman, laughing in a way I had not seen in months. There was no hesitation, no guilt, just comfort and familiarity. Chloe handed me a small earpiece and told me to listen. What I heard shattered whatever hope I had left. They spoke about me like I was disposable. Daniel discussed divorce strategies, how to avoid giving me anything, how to make it seem like I was the problem. His mother encouraged him, comparing the other woman to me in a way that made my chest tighten with anger. That was the moment something inside me changed completely. We stepped out of the shadows and approached their table. The shock on their faces was almost surreal. Before anyone could recover, Chloe revealed the truth about herself, standing tall in front of the very people who had controlled her for years. Then I played the recording. The silence that followed was louder than anything I had ever experienced. Daniel tried to defend himself, to regain control of the situation, but it was too late. For the first time, I did not back down. I told him I knew everything and that I would be taking legal action. I walked away with Chloe, leaving behind the illusion of the life I once believed in. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal meetings and emotional processing. With the evidence we had, the outcome was clear. The marriage ended, and I was granted financial support that allowed me to rebuild my life. But more importantly, I regained something I did not even realize I had lost: my voice. Months later, I stood in my new apartment in Raleigh, looking out over the city with a sense of calm I had not felt in years. I had returned to work, this time on my own terms, choosing clients and projects that respected my boundaries. Chloe had also started a new chapter, finally living freely without the weight of her past. One afternoon, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, I saw Daniel and Margaret standing there, looking nothing like the people who once controlled my life. They asked for help, their voices filled with regret. For a moment, I simply looked at them, remembering everything I had endured. Then I made the simplest, most important decision of my life. I said no. I closed the door, not with anger but with clarity. Some endings are not about revenge. They are about choosing yourself after years of being overlooked. As I walked back into my home, I realized that losing that marriage was never the tragedy I thought it would be. It was the beginning of a life where I no longer had to shrink to make others comfortable. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt free.